Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, hello and welcome. My name is Megan and it's so lovely to have you guys here. Today's video is going to be dedicated to glute growth, all about the booty, all about growing the glutes, and my top tips for growing the glutes, as well as a science/muscle breakdown of which movements target which parts of the glute so that you guys know how to structure a glute workout catered towards you and your goals. By no means am I saying I'm the biggest bootiest bitch in the world. By no means am I the biggest bootiest bitch in the world, but I definitely am less glute dominant. I've always been quad dominant. It's been very difficult for me to grow my glutes in the time that I have been lifting. Once I took the time to learn which exercises target which parts of the glutes and really curate a glute workout and be consistent with it over time, I've seen so much glute growth. And for my people who aren't as glute dominant or just don't have as great of glute genetics, this is a very realistic and real approach to growing the glutes from somebody who has struggled with it and who has been working towards it. So again, by no means am I saying that my ass is the blueprint, but I can definitely say that these tips do work, and I have grown my glutes 1 inch in the past few months. And before we get into any of the exercises, creating the workout, how to do these movements, etc., the first thing that I want to note when it comes to growing any part of your body, when it comes to wanting to increase muscle mass size, when it comes to wanting to gain weight, you have to be eating enough, and that really can be what's setting you back from seeing the results. You can feel like you're doing everything right. You could be doing everything that I'm saying in this video and still wondering why you're not seeing results, and it's really likely that you're not eating enough. And I think people think, like, I know myself, I always think that I am eating enough, but in reality I could be eating so much more, and I could definitely prioritize my protein better. And so my top 2 things when it comes to nutrition, you don't need to track, but you need to make sure you're getting enough food in your system and that you have enough protein to fuel muscle growth. So for the bulk of the video, what I want to talk to you guys about is the different parts of the glutes and what exercises really do target each part, so that you guys can make sure when we get to the part of making your glute workout that you know what hits what. So that's what we're going to start with. I have it all on my computer because I typed it all out for you guys. I wanted it to be as helpful as possible, and I will also be sure to pop all the movements on the screen as well. I wanted to start off by talking about the 3 major muscles in the glutes, because I think people think of the glutes as a whole. So the 3 major muscles are the glute minimus, glute maximus, and glute medius. I'll pop a picture of the booty on the screen so you guys can see this for yourself, but those are the 3 different components of the glutes, and each one have a different role in the shape and appearance of our glutes. And when it comes to the way that our glutes look, training the glute minimus doesn't really do a ton because it is deeper into the surface. So it's not really going to add a lot to the look of the glutes since it's a smaller and deeper muscle. So the key components that we want to make sure that we are targeting are going to be the glute maximus and the glute medius for optimal glute growth and appearance. I think the most important part to note here is that when thinking about wanting to grow the glutes, we have to make sure that we're equally hitting the different parts of the glutes, the upper booty, the side booty, and the under booty, to ensure that we get a well-rounded glute approach. I think the biggest mistake that I was making at the beginning was I wasn't thinking of the glutes in these 3 components, and so I was just working out and doing so many of the same exercises targeting the same exact part of the glutes, and that's why I wasn't seeing the well-rounded shape grow. Additionally, some other mistakes that I had made that were kind of stalling my progress on growing my glutes were the fact that I didn't have a true glute dedicated day, or I wasn't consistent with that dedicated day. When you make your glute split and when you choose your workouts that you want to do, be consistent with that for 3 months. Like, be consistent with those movements, even if it feels boring, even if you don't love it. You have to be consistent for a period of time to see results. And if you're switching things too much, then you're not going to see those results, or you're not going to be able to properly overload those groups of muscles or overload those movements to a point where they're even going to be attributing to muscle growth. So we are going to now break down the 3 different parts of the glutes that make up the booty. So we're going to first talk about the upper glutes, which is the shelf that everyone's trying to build, that top part of your booty. That's what we're going to be talking about first. So to target the upper booty and really gain that illusion of the shelf, you want to be training the glute maximus. And in training the glute maximus, the main place that you are going to be hitting this upper booty and get this shelf is in the shortened position. So the next exercises that I list are going to be the ones that work the glutes in the shortened position. Glute max cable kickbacks, 45-degree back extensions with a focus on the top third of range of motion, glute bridges, and barbell hip thrusts. So these movements are in a more shortened position, in a more controlled position, and are really going to focus on that upper booty or that shelf that everyone wants to achieve. So when you're going to curate a workout and you're choosing from these, you want to maybe choose 2 out of the 4 of these to do. You don't want to be doing all of these as your whole workout. Now for the lower booty, aka the under booty, which I feel like on me is the hardest thing to grow. In order to target the lower booty and create a more profound under booty, then you have to be training the glutes in a more lengthened position, so opposite of what you would be doing for the shelf, and really working in that area where where the hamstrings attach into the glute, because that is where the muscle is going to be. So there are a lot of different exercise examples for doing the lower glutes, with examples being RDLs, good mornings, conventional deadlifts, Bulgarian split squats, lunges, leg press, reverse lunges, squats to parallel, step ups, etc. There's so many different ways to target this in the lengthened position, and I want to make it clear, just because these exercises target the lower booty does not mean that they are only hitting the lower booty. It's just something that has more emphasis on the lower part of the booty because of it being in a lengthened position. So just to be clear, all of these movements do target the glutes, but these just target the lower glutes a little bit more. And lastly, I wanted to talk to you guys about the side glutes, aka the side booty, aka the P shape. If you guys remember on TikTok, the personality trend, that is exactly what I'm talking about right here. So the side glutes, there's really only one movement that I feel like will profoundly help to grow the glute medius, and that is going to be glute med kickback, which I do talk about a lot in some of my workouts, and I highly recommend it. I've been doing it more often. I've definitely seen great results from doing this and adding it into my routine. Instead of talking you guys through the movements right now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna insert different clips of me doing all of these movements so that you guys can see the movements, and I'm gonna give you guys brief cues as to how to complete the movements and how to do them correctly, as opposed to me just talking you guys through them right now. I feel like visuals are always more helpful, so I will just pop that in right now. First up are the upper glute exercises. For glute max cable kickbacks, the key difference between these and glute medius cable kickbacks is that you're going to be kicking straight back, and you also want to have the cable attachment a little bit higher to allow you a full range of motion. As you guys can see here, you want to align it around the knee to a little bit under the knee area, just so it allows you to bring that foot all the way forward. You want to ensure that you're aiming to kick straight back, and also keep your torso upright as much as you can, keeping a neutral spine, and feel free to hold on if you need extra support. For back extensions, the key form considerations for these to make them more glute focused would be to place the weight away from you and have a nice round in the upper back to have more emphasis on the glutes. Additionally, focusing on the top third portion of the movement is going to have more of the glute emphasis with the lockout. And then lastly, have a slight bend in your knee and have your toes pointing outwards to help with full hip extension. Next up, I'm going to talk you guys through hip thrusts. So here you want to find a bench or something that can go right under your shoulder blades comfortably. And as far as your setup with your feet, you want to have them about shoulder width apart, and then you want to point your toes outwards. The reason for this is it's going to help you to reach full hip extension at the top of the movement, which is where the glutes are primarily going to be worked. So here what you want to ensure is that you're scooping with your hips, keeping your chin tucked, not looking up at the ceiling, and keeping your whole body nice and braced. And this is the full range of motion. And then I'm going to talk you guys through the cast glute bridge next, which is a shortened of this range of motion. So here in the cast glute bridge, you're having the same setup as the hip thrust, but instead of doing the full movement going all the way down to the bottom, you're focused on that top third portion. Doing this maintains most of the tension on the glutes, since the top portion of the thrust, like I mentioned earlier, is going to be where your glutes are working the most. And then I love to add holds and stuff to make these more challenging. Next, we have the lower glute exercises. For the setup for glute bias RDLs, what you want to do is have a shoulder width stance with your toes pointed forward, not outwards for this movement, and you want to hinge backwards at the hip. And the stopping point for everybody is going to be different. Some people will stop right below the knee, and some people can go all the way down. Your range of motion just is dependent on you, but you don't want to have any rounding in the lower back. So just find that place that's best for you. And to make these more glute bias, what you actually want to do is have more of a focus in the knee bend. So have a little bit more of a knee bend than you would for a hamstring bias, but otherwise the core movement is the hip hinge. Another great hip hinged movement that is very similar to an RDL, but just the load is a little bit different, is going to be good morning. So here it's the same focus with you hinging your hips back, really pushing them back as far as you can go, except this time the weight is going to be on your back instead. Just ensure to keep your feet planted and your core braced throughout the movement. Some cues for conventional deadlifts is you want to have a stance about shoulder width apart, again with your toes face forward, and you want to grip the bar on the outside of your leg. Ensure that you are activating your lats and bracing your core throughout each rep. This movement is done with more of a knee bend, and just ensure that you lock out at the top of the rep. For Bulgarian split squats, you want to find an appropriate heighted bench. You can do this with a lower height. You could stack two plates on top of each other, or you can use a higher bench if that's more comfortable for you. But essentially you just want to have the back foot up and you're focusing on the working leg, which is the one planted on the floor. If you're only using one dumbbell, you want to load the side that is working. And for more glute emphasis, you actually want to have your torso more bent forward to have more of a glute bias. For the leg press, you want to actually put your feet higher and closer together to have a higher emphasis on the glute muscles. And as far as the actual movement is concerned, you're obviously just pressing up and then allowing your legs to come fully to your chest. For walking lunges, you actually want to have your front toe come a little bit inwards, and that's going to help to get more stretch on the glute. And again, you want to have more of a slight lean to have more emphasis on the glutes as well. The glutes play a great role in stabilization for this movement. However, if you prefer to do something in a more static form, some other lunge variations would include reverse lunges, Smith machine lunges, curtsy lunges, and with a lot of these variations, you can stand on a plate to have more emphasis on that front glute as well. Next up, we have squat variations. I'm showing you guys a barbell squat, which I can make a whole video on, honestly, with form, but the keys here are just to keep a straight bar path, keep your core braced, and sit back into the squat. You can also do this with an easy bar or a dumbbell if you're not yet comfortable with the barbell, and you can also add pauses at the bottom because that is where the highest glute engagement is actually going to be for this movement. For step-ups, some key considerations are that you actually want to have the box or platform in front of you because that gives you the best alignment for your glute muscle fibers. And if you're not yet comfortable holding weights, that's totally fine. Or if you're struggling with balance and stabilization, there's no shame in holding the wall or holding a pole to give yourself better stabilization. And if you only want to use one dumbbell or one weight, then you can put it on the side of the working leg. Some key considerations here is you don't want to be pushing off with the back leg. Instead, you want to just use it to touch the floor very quickly and then come back up. You can even do it where that leg doesn't even touch the floor fully and it just taps the ground. If you feel like you're pushing off too much, you really want to feel this in the glute of the leg that is on top of the box, and you want to keep these as controlled as possible. And this is another movement where you want your torso more forward to have more glute emphasis. These are a movement that I feel are actually super challenging even though they look easy, and they're a great movement for really targeting that glute muscle. Lastly, we have our key side glute exercise. For our glute med kickbacks, the key considerations here are that you actually want to be kicking out and back at a 45-degree angle, and you want your toe to be pointed outwards as well. You can hold on for stabilization. You want to keep your torso as upright as possible. So the key difference between this and the glute max kickback is that you are kicking outwards, whereas in the max kickback, you are kicking straight back. Hopefully these tips were helpful, but if you guys are ever struggling and need more form advice, you can always comment or DM me, or if you want a video or anything specific to a certain exercise, I can definitely do that on my Instagram. So lastly, I just want to talk about creating your own glute workout, because I do feel like you can be given all the tools, but if you don't use them correctly, then it's kind of pointless. And I feel like that's what I was doing for a really long time. I had all the tools, but I just wasn't doing the right things and I wasn't making the right program for me. So the first thing that I want to say is when you're creating your glute focused lower body workout day, make sure that it's glute focused and make sure that you're choosing a variety of exercises that I just listed above. You don't want to be doing 5 exercises that all just target the upper booty, because then you're not going to get the most well-rounded glute workout. I do have my glute workout up, which I'm going to link somewhere on the screen, which has been the one that I have been following for the past, I want to say 2 to 3 months now, and it has been great for me. The process of how I made that is what I'm going to talk about next. But if you guys just want a blueprint, I honestly highly recommend that one. And the exercises in that can be easily swapped out with something else on the list that I had mentioned earlier. But I think the biggest thing that I keep reminding you guys of is just not to be redundant with your training, not to be doing the same things, hitting the same group 5 times in your workout, because it's obviously not going to be the most productive. For example, doing 2 RDL variations in a workout, doing too many lunge variations or too many squat variations in a workout, or too many hinge variations. So for example, an RDL and a good morning pretty much are the same thing. They serve the same purpose of a hip hinge. They're just loaded differently. You don't necessarily need to be doing 2 in a workout. You could pick one, stick with it, and work on building on it. And then over time, if you get tired of it, you can swap it out. And for your next rotation of that workout, you can be doing the other one, but I wouldn't do both in the same workout because it's just extremely fatiguing and it's gonna stop you from maybe doing a different exercise that could be more beneficial. My key way of building a glute workout is to think of it like this. So I like to aim for 1 thrust variation, so a hip thrust or a glute bridge. One of the 2 I think is great, or doing a complex is what I like to do. So doing thrusts into a glute bridge, just something like that to start off your workout and working to do that in a heavier manner. Then I like to go into a form of a hip hinge, which like I just mentioned, an RDL or a good morning are both great examples, or a conventional deadlift is another great example of a hip hinging movement that is going to help to target the hamstrings as well as in the glute region. Then I like to add 1 to 2 lunge variations. Lunges are great for the glutes Examples being walking lunges, step ups, Bulgarian split squats, reverse lunges. There's so many different options, but again, make sure that it's not too redundant and it's not just you doing the same thing twice, because that can be, again, extremely fatiguing. And then I like to pick an isolation movement, which for me is always a cable kickback, and that can either be one focused on the glute maximus or the glute medius, but since the glute medius are best hit in this kickback position, I would do a glute medius kickback. And if you guys have 2 leg days in a week, you can sprinkle more of these movements in on a different day, so you're still hitting glutes on a different leg day. But as far as creating one glute focus day, those would be my top tips in curating the best workout for you. But again, this is the best workout for you, and so you can call the shots when it comes to what is best for you or what you would like to do in your workout. Those are going to be my top tips for building the most ideal glute workout for yourself. And again, I hope that the integration of the movements with voiceover was helpful. And again, you're not going to see growth without proper rest, without proper nutrition, without making sure that you're eating enough. So make sure that you're eating enough, prioritizing protein, and doing something long enough to see the results. You have to be consistent week to week over at least a month or two's period of time before you can start expecting to see results. And some things just take longer for some people than others. Not everyone has the best glute genetics, myself included, and it does take a lot of work, but it's definitely achievable over time. And yeah, I hope that this was helpful for you guys. Hopefully this laid it out in an easier manner for you guys, because I know things are floating all around TikTok every single day. This is the best glute workout, this is the best this, and it can just be extremely confusing. And so I wanted to just have everything in one place for you guys based on the knowledge that I've recently gotten, the research that I've put in, and the growth that I've had. And hopefully this was helpful for you guys. And if there's any questions, anything you guys need clarification on, please feel free to comment down below. Or if it's more personal, or if you want me to check out your form, you guys can always DM me on Instagram and I will get back to you. I'll put my @ on the screen. And lastly, if you guys have goals or you're just struggling with the consistency portion or the programming portion, you guys would like to invest in a coach or get a personalized program, I will be launching those services for you guys. So please feel free to DM me now and I can give you guys further details and give you guys the application links in case that's something that you would like. But as always, I give you guys the resources so you guys can do this for yourself. I'm not trying to just tell you to pay me to do it, but if you need that extra support or guidance, or it's just very overwhelming for you, I'd be more than happy to be that support for you guys. So hopefully this was all helpful. Again, feel free to reach out to me if anything didn't make sense, or comment down below and let me know if there's any follow-up videos that you guys think would be helpful as well. And make sure to check out the glute workout that I already have posted. I'll have it in the description below. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.